Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Meepolis and this is Literally Graphic. And today we are looking at Meat and Bone, a webcomic now published as a book by Conundrum Press with art and words by Kate Verhoeven. Content notes for ED struggling with body image, revenge porn, reporting someone on parole, and some jealousy problems. According to the back French flap, Kate Verhoeven is a Canadian cartoonist raised in Kingston and living in Toronto. She started making zines while studying at OCAD with the short The Artichoke. Her previous graphic novel, Towerkind, was nominated for the Ignatz and Doug Bright Awards. As far as keywords go, I would say slice of life, queer, polyamorous, strength training, food industry, and Toronto. Because yes, this does feel like a quintessential sort of story to happen here. Getting into the plot synopsis, Anne thinks that getting a new place with her two best friends will be a fresh start. Then she meets Marshall, the girl downstairs. Their friendship will trigger body image issues she thought she had left behind. Meanwhile, Gwen tries out polyamorous dating, and Jane practically moves into the gym, where she quietly works through her problems and those of her friends. In Meat and Bone, Kate Verhoeven winds these threads into an unflinching, beautifully illustrated exploration of how three Toronto women define themselves. Learning to love yourself is certainly a theme of the book, a big part of coming of age through your 20s, in my opinion. How we take care of and love others is also at play here. Flipping through the book, it quickly becomes obvious why most people who talk about this book bring up the art. It really does check a lot of boxes with vibrancy and expressiveness that I found very engrossing. Each character is very unique, both visually and how they develop, and Verhoeven successfully communicates a lot through her color choices as well. Similarly, when it came to dialogue, word choice, and word placement were all pretty top-notch. For such a thick book, it really flew by. As far as gender and sexuality is concerned, that is certainly a focus of the book. We have several openly bi characters, a monogamous heterosexual couple, a few polyamorous connections, friendship, mentorship, and probably some other kinds of relationships I'm forgetting about, because a large portion of this book is focused on relationships of all kinds. Gender is discussed a lot less, and I don't think there were any genders present outside of men and women, at least that I caught on to. That said, gender expression was pretty flexible, and there is a great diversity of kinds of men and women in this story overall. There is one trans woman in this story, and while I wouldn't say, noting that I am not an expert in this area, that there was any transphobia expressed by any of the characters, I felt the character design was a bit off for me, and I think it's not the best thing that she was also the flattest character. Of course, of all the reviews I've read, no one has mentioned this, so maybe I'm just overthinking things. It mostly boils down to the speckled texture being applied to Marshall's skin. I wasn't sure what this was. It didn't really look like the freckles other characters had. It did make her look kind of sickly, which I think was the point, but it also sort of looked like stubble, which I felt would be kind of mean. And while I'm probably wrong, the ending helped me feel better about most things related to Marshall. I still wouldn't mind knowing what this texture is about. Race was depicted in a typical, quote, Canadian way. We're a mosaic, not a melting pot, lol. The characters each have their own unique look that oftentimes seems to denote different races, but it doesn't really come into play plot-wise at all. Class is flirted with a bit, money comes up a couple of times, and one side character must get a second job to pay for his bail debt, and some people are more successful in their careers than others. Obviously, it's not a prominent theme of the book, but I did appreciate that it was brought up more than most stories I consume. Depending on how you class eating disorders, disability versus ability was or was not present. I have a pretty expansive definition that still turns up very few results, so it was nice to see this kind of representation and story explored. It did feel a bit odd to be tackling this book so soon after my review of In Clothes Called Fat, as this isn't the kind of story I read that often, I guess. It was interesting to see how the same issues were explored from such different angles by such different stories. This one felt a bit more lived in than In Clothes Called Fat, but they both tell pretty nuanced stories. As far as ratings go, I think I'll be going for a 4 out of 5 stars. Very satisfying. Bye y'all, keep reading and resist white supremacy. And as always, Literally Graphic is created on land that should be given back to the traditional landholders, which in this case is, to my knowledge, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, Anishinaabe people, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Huron-Wendat Nation.